Here's a quick tutorial about editing the 2017 edition of Bill Davidson's Sprints. I've been using Sprints every day for the past 5 years, and now with the new version, I'm able to edit the Sprints, which offers even more differentiation to my students. So here's an example of what I did to edit a specific sprint for mental addition that is appropriate for third grade. I wanted to adjust the problems on the sprint so that my struggling students were able to answer a larger portion of the problems, but I also wanted to give my advanced students something to stretch their thinking so that I could meet all the needs of my students. So the first thing I needed to do was find the mental addition sprint that I knew my middle of the road kids would be able to do. And if I looked in the addition and subtraction folder, there is a subtopic for addition without renaming. And then in there were many sprints to choose from. And I felt like the adding 3-digit numbers without renaming was appropriate at this stage. For each sprint, you'll see that there are two versions, a PDF and a Word document. The version that we were able to edit is the Word document version. And since I share these sprints with my colleagues in a Dropbox folder, I made a copy of the original Word document by right-clicking and scrolling to duplicate. Since I'll probably use this sprint again next year, I decided to save the copy of the sprint in my math lessons folder, and so I just put it into the correct unit and day that I would use it and dragged it in and renamed it as Day 2 Sprint, because that's when I would use it. The next thing I did was opened that copy so that I could adjust the numbers. Now that it's in a Word document, I'm able to change any of the numbers that I want. And in order to do this, I just thought of my students. I thought of my struggling students, and I decided that for the first 11, I wanted them to get to practice the math facts that they are working to memorize. And 2 plus 1 wasn't really a math fact that they needed to work on memorizing, but it was problems like 4 plus 3 and 5 plus 3 and 6 plus 3 that they were still using their fingers for. So I decided to use those numbers that they had been working on with flashcards at home to memorize, and I put those as the beginning problems. I also decided to take away the 3 digits and kept it for 2 digits just for the first 11, since I really wanted my struggling students to be able to do the first 11 with confidence. The next thing I did was thought about my higher achieving students, and I thought what might stop them in their tracks once they were reaching the end. And I realized that maybe having more algebraic problems would give them something to think about. So many of my advanced students are able to finish all 44 problems in under a minute, and I wanted to be able to give them something to challenge them so that they weren't just staring off as the rest of the kids finished the sprint each day. The ability to be able to change these numbers gives my students, all my students, a way to challenge themselves based on their need. And so even with a sprint that is basically just add the ones, add the tens, add the hundreds, I'm able to give my struggling students practice with the math facts that they're still working to memorize. I'm able to give my middle of the road kids the practice that they need to master the skill. And then I'm also able to give my advanced students something to push themselves with, which allows me to cater the sprint to the needs of all of the students in my classroom. And once I edit this, I'll then also edit side B, and I'll use it for fluency work, classwork, homework, and the ability to strategically differentiate helps increase my students' self-esteem, and I see faster growth as a result. And it doesn't take a lot of extra time to do the night before, just making a copy of the document, adjusting the numbers, saving it, and then printing it for the next day's lesson. And each year I have a different group of students that have different needs. This year I have some extremes. I have really, really high students and I have students that need a lot of extra support. And so by having the ability to edit my sprints, I'm able to meet all my students' needs.